bookcase is moving. Hey Booktube, it's Kim at Middle of the Book March. Welcome back. It's Wednesday, November 3rd, and I have a tag for you this evening. This is a tag from a brand new booktuber who is Fraser Simons, and his channel is Springboard Thought. He's a Canadian booktuber, and he has created an original tag. Something I have not ever done. One day soon, maybe. But he's created a really cool tag that I wanted to do, and I also wanted to shout him out and support his channel. So if you haven't seen him yet, you know, stop watching my video and go watch his channel. Whatever you want to do. I think I said he's a Canadian tabletop role-playing game designer, and he loves tabletop games, books. He posts photo playlists. No. He posts regular playlists of actual plays of tabletop games, and he sounds like a really interesting guy. So I've noticed his comments on some of my videos, and when I clicked on his link, I discovered a brand new booktuber that I really like. So go and check him out. This is an original tag. Like I said, it's called the Book Palate Tag. And if you're a foodie, I think you're going to like this one. I'm not really a discriminating foodie, but I like food, so maybe that counts. Anyway, there are several prompts, and they're really interesting, so I'm going to read the prompt and tell you the books that fit. And let's see, the very first one is Sweet. What is a book that made you excited to read more by that author? And there's a bonus point if also somehow exemplifies the genre you most like to read. And I think I do get an extra point for this. One of my favorite genres to read is classics. And at the very beginning of the year, I read Cranford by Elizabeth Gaskell. And I read this with an amazing group of Cranford women, Sarah, Roz, and Hannah, and we had a great conversation about Cranford. I love this book, and this was my first Elizabeth Gaskell, even though I own North and South and Wives and Daughters. And I loved it so much that, I think there's a cricket on my floor, so that I went to a local used bookshop that I love, which actually specializes in antique books, and I got a really old copy that I treasure. So I'm really looking forward to reading more of Elizabeth Gaskell's classic novels. And I loved Cranford. It was so funny and warm and charming. I laughed out loud in parts. And it's basically about the town of Cranford. And the majority of the residents are women. And most of them are elderly or spinster or widowed women. And how they all live together. So it's a lovely book, and I can't wait to read more. I think I'll probably read North and South next because I've heard nothing but just rave reviews about it. So that was Sweet. The next one is Sour. What book did you initially dislike, but after a reread, you reversed your opinion of it? Or what is a book you loved at one time, but after rereading it, have found it lacking in some way? A bonus point if the book is in a genre you similarly reversed your position on. I won't get a bonus point for this one. But unfortunately, this book is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I read Little Women multiple times as a girl, and I absolutely loved it. And I cried and laughed, and I've seen, I think, 3 of the different adaptations. And so far, my favorite is the one with Winona Ryder. I wasn't that crazy about the most recent movie adaptation. I loved the actors and the director, but I wasn't crazy about the format. Anyway, my favorite movie was the Winona Ryder version, but I loved Little Women as a girl. And several years ago, my book group and I, in real life, read Little Women as one of our picks, and we all thought, it's good. But it didn't carry the same heft that it did when I was young. And it made me sad a little bit. It's still a beautiful story. I wasn't that crazy about the writing or maybe the pace of the writing. But, so it was a little surprising, a little sad that I maybe have gone grown too old or too jaded or too cynical for Little Women, but that was a little bit of a sour experience. Okay, Bitter. What is a book that you feel is underrated or attacked unjustly by popular or mainstream opinion, or is simply misunderstood in some way? Bonus point if it is not a book anyone else has mentioned already that you know of. Neither of these have been mentioned in the tag as far as I know, but these have been talked about on BookTube, both of which are vastly underrated in my opinion, and one of which is completely misunderstood. So this one I just read recently, and it is The Illumination of Ursula Flight by Anna Marie Crowhurst. I believe this is so underrated and underexposed that it was surprising to me. And I first saw this book on Britta Bowler's channel and Mel at Mel's Bookland Adventures, and I think her channel is now simply Melanie Martin. But those two women first reviewed this book that I saw, and it sounded so interesting. And again, this is one of the most physically beautiful books I have in my library, with those end papers and the gold foil and the illustrations. But I read this book a month or so ago and just absolutely loved it. 5-star read on Goodreads for me. But I have not seen this on very many other booktubers channels, and I think it's so highly underexposed and underrated. I have recommended this to my book group, and I think at least one or two of them have read it and loved it. So I really want this to get more play, more exposure, more people read The Illumination of Ursula Flight. Read this. It's super good. It's really, really good. The other one that I think is greatly misunderstood is Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchior. It's translated from the Spanish by Sophie Hughes. And this is a book, Melchior is a Mexican author, and she wrote this book based on her journalism experience and reading stories in Mexican newspapers regarding how many women are murdered and how many women are disappeared. And she wanted to do a nonfiction journalistic piece, a long piece, but honestly felt that she may not be safe physically in her own life if she started to do some digging and some research and investigative journalism. So she wrote a novel, and this is brutal and disgusting and raw and dirty and all of those types of words that you can imagine. But I thought it was brilliant because it's a scathing commentary on femicide in Mexico. This has to do with a town witch who is discovered brutally and gruesomely murdered in a culvert, and the story revolves around that event and that character in the town. It is, like I said, it is so completely brutal. I think it's totally misunderstood because so many people don't understand the point of this book. And other reviewers that I've seen after reading this have said it was disgusting and it was a horrible piece of writing. It's a horrible book. There's nothing redeeming about it. There is, but that's the point of why she wrote it and how she wrote it. This is brutal reality. And I was so really disappointed with reviewers that rated this book that way and reviewed it that way. They definitely missed the mark on it, missed the target. And I think it's completely misunderstood. Let's go to the next one. Salty, that's me. What is a book that changed how you thought about or related to other people, or that made you realize something about yourself you were not aware of previously? Bonus point if you choose multiple books from whatever milestone in your life that you feel is important to you. I won't get a bonus point on this one. I have one book. And that is White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. We read this book for our book group several months ago. And it just illuminated things that I already knew were there. It illuminated things in my own attitudes, in the way that I think and live in the world. But we also had an intense conversation in my in real life book group about racism and about our interactions with Black Americans and our personal experiences. And it made things bubble up that, again, I knew were there, but those things that are very difficult to acknowledge. And it made me explore my own inherent racism, the way I was brought up, the society that I live in, systemic racism. And so it was something that brought a much clearer awareness and a lot more transparency to our own personal attitudes. And it was extremely realistic and illuminating for those of us who read the book and had that conversation about it. It wasn't all pleasant and there was a lot of argument, but I think that was kind of almost necessary when you read a book like that. Okay, now there are 4 additional optional prompts for the connoisseur. You can treat each of these prompts as if they were different foods, and palates vary depending on what you're consuming. So there's 4 of these: a sophisticated palate, an unrefined palate, an eclectic palate, and a maturing palate. I'm going to do 2 of the 4, and the first one I'm going to do is an eclectic palate. What are the top 3 genres you typically read or gravitate towards? This one is kind of a controversial label, but literary fiction is the first one that I almost always gravitate towards. And I'm going to quickly show you some examples of what I mean. I picked up 3 5-star books that fall into the literary fiction category. And they just coincidentally happen to be the last 3 years Booker winners. And as of 4/18 on Wednesday, I haven't yet looked to see who won the 2021 Booker. I will put it in the text below. So the 2018 winner was Anna Burns' Milkman. This book blew me away. And I remember I checked this out at the library first, and I had to request that they buy it. So they bought it for me, and I checked it out of the library. It was brand new, and I started reading it, and I said, I'm going to return it because I must have my own copy. And I read the first half from the library, and then I bought myself a copy, and I finished it. It blew me away. I absolutely loved the book. I loved the experimentalism. I loved the formatting of the writing, and I loved the content, all of it. This was the 2019 Booker winner, Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. This should have been the sole winner. Here we go again. Every time I pick this book up, it comes up. This should have been the only winner in 2019. But again, this is a book about British women, most of who are Black. There is the story of one woman who is not. It is also the story of non-binary people, trans people, and they're somewhat interconnected. It's somewhat experimental in how it's written. There's the capitalization and the punctuation is just not there. And the formatting is really interesting how she put it together, but I thought it was brilliant and I love this book. And then last year, the 2020 Booker winner was Sugarbane by Douglas Stewart. And again, this was another 5-star read for me, but about this poor little boy's existence in Glasgow, Scotland, with a severely alcoholic addicted mother, 2 older siblings who as quickly as they can escape their dysfunctional family, and what he has to do to survive. So those are 3 really well-loved by me examples of literary fiction. The other one is literary biography, and it comes as no surprise to anybody. This was one of my, spoiler, one of my best reads of 2021, and this was one of the best biographies I've ever read. Red Comet by Heather Clark, The Short Life and Blazing Art of Sylvia Plath. I just loved that book. And I love literary biographies, and I'm still working on George Eliot, Voice of a Century. It's engaging, but it's also pretty dense, and I'm still enjoying it. I'm loving getting to the point where she's becoming George Eliot. And the third genre is classics. I just finished the last novel in the George Eliot 2021 read-along, which is Felix Holt. Another 5-star George Eliot book for me. I think there might be only one out of her 8 novels that was a 4-star, but even a 4-star rating is super good. but I love Felix Holt. And I'm really getting more into classics, and I think I will read them more regularly throughout next year and beyond. And then the last prompt that I'm going to do is the maturing palette. What is a genre you've read little or none of but would like to sample more? What book, if any, prompted this? Ursula K. Le Guin's Hainish Novels, Volume 1 from the Library of America version, and this is sci-fi. I don't often pick up sci-fi, but I really, in the last few years, I have read some really good sci-fi novels. The Murderbot Diaries, the first one, was really good. I read Binti, which was excellent, a novella series, a novella trilogy. I did read The Female Man with Britta Bowler that I DNF'd because that one was too weird and wild for me. But I'm really looking forward to diving into Le Guin's work, and this is one of the books that was on my Mooks and Gripes bucket list book tag, and this was one of the winners for me to read next year. So I'm going to be reading this volume next year for sci-fi. That is it for this tag, and Fraser Simons from Springboard Thought. This is the Book Palate Tag. Thank you for originating, for creating this. And who am I going to tag? I will tag... Okay, you wanted to know who I was going to tag. I took a gap there that you'll never know because I will have edited it out. I just revealed my secrets. I'm going to tag some smaller booktubers, which I prefer to do. The first one is Bethan Bruninga Sokolar. The second one is, I'm scrolling, Say Kevy. I love Kevy. Courtney Ferreter. Let's see. Daniel from Guilty Feet. Nell and Scott from Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. And one more. I'll tag one more of my friends. Karen Evans, how about you? I don't know if you do tags very often. So, all of you, if you happen to notice that I've tagged you because you happen to be watching this video, there is no pressure. If you want to do the tag, by all means, go for it, and I'll be really interested to see it. If you don't want to do it, or you just don't even notice that I've tagged you, no worries whatsoever. There is no pressure. I just did want to tag a few people this time. That's it for me. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books or what you think of them or what your answers may be. And I will see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.